So as always, before we get started, let me share a few resources that we have available for you. We have an AI and intelligence community forum that we post resources on, and you can also use to ask questions. So myself and my team is monitoring the questions on that. So it's the best way for you to get questions answered there. And to access that, there's a quick link, sn.works/AI. If you like the content that you're seeing today, you might want to join and subscribe to our Now Community YouTube channel. You can find that on YouTube at ServiceNow Community. You can find all the videos there. You'll find our academies, but also academies from the other groups. A lot of great information there. As we mentioned previously, we recently launched a Get Started with AI solution course on Now Learning. So if you're interested in getting an overview of all our AI solutions and how to get started, this is a good place to start as well. So that's on Now Learning. If you're customers and you are interested in partnering with us and sharing some of your data so we can help you build better AI products, we have a global AI innovation program that's ongoing right now. If you're interested, just use that email to get all the details of how you can partner with us to shape our future AI products. Today, we are going to cover content that is available and that can already be accessed in your instance. But if you have questions, or if we were to mention features that are coming in a future release, please read and apply our safe harbor notice. Just remember that when you make a purchasing decision, it's better to check back with your account team just to make sure that everything you've heard is available at the time of the purchase. If you are new to AI Academy, here are some of the basics of those sessions. This is really content that we bring for you. These are fresh ideas to provide better understanding and practical guidance on our AI products. This session is recorded and then will be posted on our YouTube channel. But if you are here with us today, this is a great opportunity for you to ask your questions. So we kindly ask you to use the Q&A panel in the Zoom interface to ask your questions. You can be at any time during the session, and we will get to those and provide the answers as best as we can. Here is the agenda for today. We're going to start with a quick overview for about 5 minutes, and we'll spend most of the session doing a live exercise in our instance. And we'll save time at the end and along the way to answer any questions that you may have. Today's topic is how to save time routing cases with task intelligence. My name is Loic Sanchez. I'm the outbound product manager on the Platform AI team. And with me today is Gene.
Hey guys, nice to meet you. I'm Gene Shtilkind, a product manager in the AI group.
Great, thank you. So let's get started with a quick overview of what we're doing today. So your organization is probably dealing with a large volume of incoming cases. The existing method to review and resolve those issues are highly manual and time-consuming, especially when it comes to triaging and prioritizing those cases. And this holds agents back from actually working on solving those cases, and then in turn delays the value that you can provide to your customers. There are rules-based methods that you can use, but they are limited. And most importantly, they are expensive to maintain because they do not leverage your past data. And this is where task intelligence can help. Task intelligence helps on that task using machine learning by helping agents spend less time on the steps of receiving and preparing the case to actually focus on solving that case. And in turn, your customers get their answers faster. It also helps to reduce errors by automating the repeatable steps. And all of that is available without costly configuration that enables a fast time to value. today we look at a few capabilities of task intelligence. The first one is Task Intelligence Admin Console. It's an intuitive experience to set up and deploy AI solutions. It helps you get started quickly with provided solution-based templates for some of the common use cases. That intuitive experience provides the steps and guidance for admins to set up the AI models. It also provides insights into the potential outcomes and helps test predictions before deployment. And after deployment, you can access that console again to see the metrics and assess the performance of the models. And talking about the available templates, today we'll go deeper into the model to fill case fields. It predicts the values of case fields, saving time and enabling faster resolution by providing the context to the agent without having them to go through the whole description of the issue or the email. So this allows to route the case to the right agent based on those values so that the case is resolved faster. The best in that approach is that it works with your data. Even if you have custom choice values, because it's trained on your data, it provides the results that fit your own needs. So that was it for the overview. Now we're gonna go to our instance and do some live configuration. You can follow along. Before we go there, let me just set the stage for that. We are a streaming service company that gets a lot of customer cases. Those cases are created by our customers via a form on the portal or via an email. What we're trying to achieve is to get that case in the hands of an agent that is qualified to resolve that issue as fast as possible. Now, the problem is that today, after the case is created, there is a lot of manual work to try to find which category and the priority of that case. And this step is needed before we can apply the logic that routes the incident to the right agent, support agent queue. In other words, that step from going from unstructured data, the description of the issue, to structured data, a category, for example, that step is very manual, and this is what delays the process. And today we'll use task intelligence to automate that process. We'll use an AI model to predict the category of our case so that the case can be routed to the agent in a matter of seconds rather than minutes. So let's go into our instance. All right, let's do it again. So we are looking at the list of our streaming service cases. From that list, we can notice that we have almost 13,000 of them, and they have different categories. So let's dig deeper into that and group them by category. And that helps us understand the distribution of the cases between the categories. And we can see that the data is fairly balanced. I have good clusters of cases within each category, except for the last category here, the feedback category. And because I've saw the low count of cases in that category, I can already say that this category is probably going to be skipped.
Yeah, I'll touch a little bit on why that category would be skipped. So machine learning works by learning patterns from historical data. And if you have a very small number of cases that apply to a certain category, like what Loic is showing here, the model is just not going to be able to learn the pattern, and it's going to skip the prediction. The same would be true if you were to add new fields or add new values to existing fields. For example, if you were to add a new product to your inventory, it will take time for the model to learn about what kind of cases belong to that product. In that situation, if you're adding a new product, you would want to start with a rules-based approach for that new product. And after some time, it could be weeks or months, depending on your case volume, you can retrain the model, and it will learn now that it has access to that data. And you can then remove those rules.
Great clarification here. So now that we know that, we can actually start setting up our AI model. And so to do that, we'll use task intelligence. So we navigate to task intelligence for customer service, and we go to the setup menu. And that's the admin console we were mentioning earlier. I have metrics about my live models, and I can set up different models based on my use case. Here, I'm looking at the prediction model. So I'm going to set up a new model for that. And I can just follow the steps to do that configuration. The first step is to define whether we are making the predictions when a new email arrives, and that's based on my historical email data, or if I want to predict the case on the case record itself. Now, if you are already bringing your emails into cases, you could choose either option. But what you have to consider is whether all the data in your email is being carried to the case. So for example, if you think that the subject line and the recipients is not copied to the case, and that's valuable information to make predictions, then you want to go with email. In our case, we are working with a case. Also notice that I can include the attachments if their content is relevant to make predictions here. That's not our case here. So let's save and go to the next step. The next step is to give our model a name and to pick the right table. So my table is the streaming service case, which is an extension of my customer service case. So that's the one I pick. And then I can choose my output field. As I mentioned, I'm trying to predict the category. So I'm going to select the category here. And then I can set up the conditions. I want to make sure that I only look at cases that were resolved. And so for that, I can use the state field for cases that are either closed or resolved, because this is data that I can use for my training. And notice that I can also set up a time window for which those cases were created. Gene, do you want to tell us more how to pick the right window?
Yeah, absolutely. So organizations evolve over time. The kind of cases you were dealing with 2 years ago are going to be different than the cases you're dealing with today. You want to make sure that your models are learning from the most up-to-date data. A useful rule of thumb is to use about the last 3 months worth of data to train your model. But if you're an organization that deals with seasonality, where you see the same cases at the same time each year, then you want to make sure to include about the last 13 months worth of data, so the model will have learned from last year and can apply those learnings when the same cycle occurs this year. Next, we can talk about how we'll choose the input fields. So here, Loic's showing that we have input fields for description and short description. How do you actually choose what the right input fields are? So first, you want to make sure that the input fields are actually available at the time the prediction is being made. For example, if you're predicting category, you probably don't want to use assignment group as an input field because the assignment group isn't going to be available until after the category is determined. So every prediction will just have a null assignment group and it won't help the model learn any useful pattern. Second, when selecting input fields, it's useful to think about it from a human perspective. Put yourself into the shoes of an agent. If you were trying to predict category, which fields would you look at when deciding which category is relevant? Short description, those seem like they would have useful information. On the other hand, priority is probably not that useful in identifying category. So I wouldn't choose priority as an input field. To recap, when you choose your input fields, consider what data is available at the time of prediction and think about it from a human perspective.
Thank you for that clarification. So now that we applied our conditions and we define our input fields, we are ready to review the number of records. And as a baseline, we need 10,000 records. So the model has enough data to learn patterns. And in that case, we are right on target. So we are ready to launch the training. Now the training step is a step that takes some time, take a few minutes, and just to save that time in the demo today, I actually run that previously. So I'm going to switch to the other model that has already been trained. Just want to point out here that because I already have a model that is trained on the category field, this is where I actually got that warning here. So the admin console here is letting me know that I might try to predict something that is already predicted by another model. So it's helpful guidance. So I'll just exit that model and go back and go to the one that I previously trained. Just to show you that it's the same, I'll go through quickly the steps. So I did select case here. I have the same condition, still predicting category based on short description and description. Then I train my model and I get an overview of the number of values that would have been autofilled if my model was deployed at the time that all the cases were created. So that's a lot of fields that could have been saved. And then I get a sample test results of each of the output field. So Gene, you want to give us some details about that?
Yeah, so let's first talk about the numbers that you're seeing here. 77%, 19%, 4%. What do those mean? So this is telling you that the category would be predicted the same as what the agent would have selected about 77% of the time. It would have been different 19% of the time. Now, there's a nuance here. When it's different, it doesn't necessarily mean that the model is wrong. There are some situations where the model might actually choose a more correct value than what the agent chose. And then the 4% is when the model didn't feel confident enough to make a prediction and it just skipped over the prediction. So this gives you the high-level overview of approximately how accurate your model is going to be. And then if you want to see specific examples of what those predictions will look like, you can go into View Sample Results. So here you can see specific examples of cases. The first one we're seeing is a cancellation of subscription. In that situation, the agent chose that the category was subscription cancellation, and the model predicted the same thing. So that would go into that 77%. The goal with this page is just for you to get a feel of how these predictions will actually look. It's not for you to assess the overall quality of the model. You should assess the quality by looking at the previous page that gives you that high-level breakdown. So let's go back to that last page. So when customers get here, they often ask us, what is good enough? Should I be aiming for 20%, 50%, 80%? And I think everybody wants the answer to be one number, but the truth is there's no magic number. Good enough is determined by several variables. The first is, what is the cost of getting it wrong? Or in technical terms, what is the cost of a misclassification? So I'll give you one more extreme example. There are some customers who have a checkbox on their case form that indicates whether the case is a health and safety issue. Now, health and safety issues, they'll trigger several downstream workflows and cause various departments to swarm together to quickly figure out and resolve the issue. In this situation, getting that wrong, incorrectly predicting that something was a health and safety issue when it wasn't, and vice versa, the cost of that is very high. So good enough is going to have a very high benchmark in that situation. The second thing to think about is how many options are there in the field you're predicting? Picking the right option out of 5 is much easier than picking the right option out of 500,000. If you're predicting the priority field, which only has 5 values, the model will probably do a great job of that. On the other hand, if you're asking the model to pick the right product from a list of 500,000 products, you can expect that it's going to be less accurate. And finally, you should ask, how well are we doing today? If your agents are categorizing cases 70% correctly, then 70% is an incredible score for a machine learning model since it's learning from the behavior of your agents. And if you can get to 70% accuracy, then you can effectively automate that task without impacting other KPIs. And that would be a great outcome. And if you want to know, how do I actually know how well I'm doing today? Well, some of that data is easy to get from the platform. For example, if you want to know how accurate you are with your first assignment, you can go to the audit log, filter for the last 6 months of cases, and look for the percentage of cases where the final assignment group was the same as the initial assignment group. You can consider that your correct prediction rate. For other fields like category, it's not that easy. Even if the category is marked incorrectly, it could be the case that no one bothers to fix it. In that scenario, you can't rely on the audit log, and you'd need a human to review it. So you would want to pull in a subject matter expert, give them an example of the last, let's say, 500 closed cases, and ask them to mark each one of them, whether it was correct or incorrect. And then you can sum all that up and you can get a score of how well you're doing today. And just remember, your AI learns from your data. So whether it's good or bad data, your AI is going to be influenced by that, and it's going to impact the ultimate level of accuracy.
Great, thank you. So there are a few questions on licensing. We can just, we have a wrap-up recap at the end. We'll also make sure to cover again the licensing and for which product this is available, as well as maybe touch quickly on the difference between that and predictive intelligence at the end. There is one question I want to address right now. Somebody's asking us, if we wanted to use task intelligence to populate certain fields on our case, but those fields are mandatory in the UI, would that cause issue? Well, the answer is yes. But if the case is mandatory today, and the user creating that case doesn't really have all the information that they need to fill that case, it's probably a bad UI, right? It's probably an issue with the process on your side. So really, that's where task intelligence can help by either removing that step of having to fill that value and just automating that.
Yeah, just to add on to that, you certainly can predict mandatory fields. It will be filled in just the same as if an agent would have filled it in. So there shouldn't be any restriction to doing that.
Okay, let's continue now. So we are done with our assessment. We are ready to move to the next step. The next step is to choose how we want to show those predictions. So we can either show the predictions in the case itself, and there are two options for that. It's whether the value that's predicted actually is going to fill the value on that field, and that's what we call autofill. Or I can give the agent more flexibility and just give them a recommendation of what the value that was predicted was. In that case, I'm going to let them take the action to change the value if needed. And the alternative to that is to have the model only run in the background. So it's not going to show any information on the form itself, but it could be helpful for you if you want to further assess your model. Once we are ready with that step, the last step is to review all of your choices and get ready to deploy simply by clicking on deploy here. And so my model is deployed now. Just a quick note here, if you were working on a sub-prod environment, you can access the menu here and you have the option to export your model. So if you click on that, there's a new tab that opens and a few steps to follow to download the XML file with all the content of that training. Just want to mention that if you are working in a sub-prod environment, just make sure that the data that's there is up to date and really reflects your production environment. As Gene mentioned, the data is a very important step in that process of training. So always need to be good and fresh and reflective of what you want to achieve. So important to mention here. And so our model is deployed and it's ready to make predictions. There's one last step that I want to show you before I actually show you the end-to-end process now, is that I actually defined a queue in advanced work assignment. Now, if we recall the slide that I presented earlier, that step of defining which group to assign that case to is a fairly easy process to do once the data is structured, right? Once I know that the category is an app issue or an app question, it's fairly easy for me to say, well, if that's the case, then route this case to the next available agent on the streaming app service support group. So that's what my advanced work assignment queue is doing here. The only thing I have to add here for specifically CSM is I need to make sure that the prediction is actually complete. So I need to make sure that the prediction status is not in progress anymore. So I'm basically telling that rule, I'm waiting for the prediction to be done before making my assignment, which in the workflow here makes sense. So we have that in place. I do have another window here with an agent that is available, is ready to work on cases. And I'm going to create a new case. So I'll go back to my list of streaming service cases and I'm going to create a new case. I see by default the category is undefined and I'm going to input my description. So in that case, the customer installed the app. It's not working on their TV. I can simply save that case here. I'll just change the view here. And I see that the category here was predicted. So task intelligence predicted that the category should be app issue based on that short description. And because of my advanced work assignment rule, immediately the case was routed to my agent that is ready to work on it. So here, in a matter of seconds, the case was created and routed to an agent that is qualified to work on it. It means that the case can be resolved fast and the customer can get value very quickly. And so that's it for our exercise today. We have one slide to recap and wrap up. We started by looking at the data to really understand how it looked and the distribution of it. And then we were able to set up a prediction model in the Task Intelligence Admin console, and the steps involved there were to choose between the email or the case table. And then I selected case, and then I selected specifically the case table that I'm working with. Then I defined my conditions. I defined the cases that were resolved, and then I defined my time window. And then I selected my output fields. In that case, I selected the category field, and then I selected the input fields. That, again, considering what is available at the time the case is created and the prediction is made, and really what made sense for even if a human had to do it. So in that case, short description and description. Then I moved forward and started training my solution and looking at the sample results and doing some additional benchmarking to assess the solution. Once I was satisfied with that, I was ready to deploy. So I just deployed my model. And then I set up an advanced work assignment to take that structured data and route the case to the right agent. So that's really what we covered today in that exercise. Just want to touch on licensing. So we had questions around what license do we need today, what plugins. So today, Task Intelligence is available for CSM via a CSM Pro license. You'll need to install the Task Intelligence plugin that is dependent on predictive intelligence. And then I'm going to go through the questions.
And I'll just add one more thing onto that. There were questions about whether Task Intelligence is available for ITSM. It's not currently available for ITSM, but in a few months, it will be available for customers with the ITSM Pro license.
Yeah, exactly.
Should we touch on the predictive intelligence versus task intelligence question?
Sure. You want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So predictive intelligence is great if you have people on your team who have some experience with data science, but a lot of our customers don't have individuals on their team with data science expertise. Task intelligence makes machine learning much more of a turnkey solution and really frames it in terms that people, even without data science experience, should be able to understand. So if you don't have data science expertise, then we definitely recommend you use task intelligence. It's easy to set up, it's easy to understand. If you do have people on your team who have data science expertise, you still certainly can use task intelligence. Predictive intelligence will give you a little bit more granularity of control that people with data science familiarity will be interested in.
Perfect. I'm just going to go through some of the questions because I'm not sure everybody actually always sees all the answers, but just a question about like having fake data, or how do you want to get about finding data to play with it. So again, there are a few options to do that. If you have access to Demo Hub as a partner, you can go on Demo Hub and look at the Task Intel narrative there. But really, if you can, just test it out on your sub-prod environment. This is the best data you're going to have, and it's going to provide value that really makes sense, and you don't even have to fake it.
And you could even test it out in prod. There should be no harm in training models in prod and assessing it and seeing the results. You don't actually have to deploy it. You can just test it. You could even deploy it in monitoring mode first and just see how it works without impacting the agent experience. And that's something that you can do in production.
Yep.
I'm also seeing questions here about HR service delivery and workplace service delivery. So we don't yet have task intelligence available for HR and workplace service delivery, but we expect to in the future.
All right, I think we are coming on time. So we just wrapped up. If there are any additional questions on the product, feel free again to join on the AI intelligence community, sn.works/AI. You can post your questions there. We are always monitoring the forum, and we'll get back to you very quickly here. We'll see you in 2 weeks. And thanks, Gene.
Thank you.